5 Live Money. Kate Lester joins us, founder and CEO of Diamond Logistics, which has bases around the UK. So, Kate, thanks very much for coming on. What do you transport and where to?
Well, everything, and we actually have got quite a specialism in alcohol fulfillment, actually. So there is beer available, I know, because we've got it on our shelves, Yabba beer, but we do artisan brands like gin and vermouth. We do everything from artisan honey to more vital things such as blood transfusions and PPE and testing, some of this sort of flight testing that we're doing. So we do a real mixed bag in terms of logistics.
So what's your fleet? How big is your fleet?
Throughout the UK, we've got 30 sites. In terms of team members per site, you've got between 5 and 10 team members. We've got 35 at our Guildford HQ. And in terms of drivers, you've got anywhere between 10 to 15 drivers per site or up to 1,000.
OK, so how has it affected you so far? Who's being pinged?
Well, the COVID isolation has personally affected me. I am day one out of 10 days isolation because my son and granddaughter came down with it and have been self-isolating here as I'm part of their support bubble. But at the moment at the headquarters, we've got 25% of our team off. And that's a mixture of, I'd probably say 50% of it is the Pingdemic or Pingdemic even. And then you've got children that have been isolated because their bubbles have been isolated at school. You've got people who've actually got COVID. That's actually a minimal percentage of the people who are having to self-isolate. Or you've got people that are in bubbles such as myself. So that's a huge amount of our team off, 25%.
So what do you make of this from the boss of Bidfood, Andrew Selly, who spoke to us earlier? And this is his company's advice for people pinged through the app.
If they get pinged, then we've been told that that's advisory. That was confirmed to us by DEFRA. So we're asking our staff to go and get a PCR test. If it's positive, then clearly they isolate. If it's negative, we ask them if they'd like to come back to work and take part in our daily lateral flow testings before they go to their place of work.
Have you got any sympathy with that view? What if somebody crucial comes to you and says, I've been pinged, what do you say?
I do. I believe it's actually a really pragmatic way of doing it. But currently speaking, it's against the law, isn't it? So if you've got the NHS app and you choose not to self-isolate, as far as I understand it, you're breaking the law, as much as one of the business secretaries said that it was theoretically advisory. So we can't instruct our team to do that. What we are doing, though, is that, if people are, we do test people every day. We do make sure we've got safe working in place. I self-tested all the time. I was self-isolating before I go back into the office to make sure I'm clear. So the testing regime is there. But what we really need is the exclusion in terms of having to do it, a legal exclusion. We don't want to be in breach of government laws. We want to act within the guidelines that are there. Otherwise, we're deemed irresponsible. What we'd like them to say is, as they did, 18 months ago when we started this pandemic, as key workers, we were allowed to be on the roads, we were allowed to attend work, we were allowed to fulfill in our warehouses. And we'd like to be able to do the same now.
So what should it look like come, the end of August? What should the rules be? So would we still have pings, for example, in your book?
How effective is the track and trace? I mean, ultimately speaking, an individual can delete the app, can't they? So, and how many people on hospitality, places are actually even recording it now. I don't know how effective the track and trace is in a relatively area in society. But in terms of what we need for our industry, I think if you leave it to the end of August, there'll be chaos in terms of distribution. I think it really needs to happen within the next couple of days.
But what does the ideal system look like is what I'm trying to get at. Would you be testing all your people every day on a lateral flow?
We do test them every day on a lateral flow. In the offices, and they absolutely have to do that. We do a temperature check as they come in. They do a lateral flow, and then if they're good, they're good, and if they're not, they're out.
And what if somebody then tests positive, and maybe you do a PCR as well? And you would then agree they have to isolate, presumably, and presumably their colleagues do as well?
Yes, they do, yes. And we actually had an incident before Christmas whereby we had 7 out of a team of 8 who came down with symptoms, then went on to self-isolate. They all developed COVID, and we were having to run on skeleton staff in the 2 days before Christmas. But we made the decision to do that rather than exposing the rest of the team to it. So we've actually had cases like that within the business.
So what if a driver's teenage daughter tests positive? Then what do you want from that driver?
It depends whether he's been in close proximity.
Well, let's assume he has then.
Yeah, okay. Well, then I guess he would have to self-isolate, yes.
Okay, and then, but would you test? I mean, the idea is that you could maybe self-isolate and then test them after 3 and 5 days or whatever with a PCR, and when they're clear, they're clear. I mean, what?
If that driver was double vaccinated and he tested clear with a PCR, I think we need to have some clarity in terms of what we're allowed to do with that. I would argue, having just spent 2 weeks effectively with 2 COVID-ridden individuals, I've been double vaccinated. I tested clear for a lateral test every day. So I would argue that I'm fit to go to work. But, I can't dictate that on behalf of the driver. We can't make them obliged to do so. But, and we support them fully in terms of time outside of the office. So there's got to be that individual choice. But in terms of operational preference, I'd like the double vax to be able to go to work based on the fact that they're delivering clear lateral flow tests.
Okay, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
For your time. Nice talking to you, Kate Lester of Diamond Logistics.